everyone. Welcome to this week's Talking Stick Show. So I'd like to welcome back the outstanding, my sister Nalinee Diosara to the show this week. Hello, Nalinee.
Hi, thank you for having me again. It's been 2 years, hasn't it? Or a year?
Yes, 2 years, a while. It's been a while. And you, one of the first guests I had on, I think you came on the show. I think it was 3 times you've come on before. You came on with Kelly once and twice on your own. And yeah, I think you have the most views in one of my episodes ever. The first one was incredible. It was incredible how much feedback I got on that first one. It was like a bit of a freak one, which was yeah. So you've got the I couldn't believe it. I think it was a fourth episode. It was something crazy how many people viewed that show, and I just want to thank you again for having your time to come on.
No, thank you, and I can't guarantee that that will happen again.
No, no, not at all. But I just want to say, I looked one morning and I'm like, what? There's a few thousand people have watched it overnight, and I was like, eh? It's like amazing. So, for those who are not aware about you, Nalinee, and what you do, if you'd like to just give us a quick little synopsis about your background and what you do, sister.
Yeah, so at this moment, I identify myself as a conduit, and all this identity may change in the future, and this identity of being a conduit at this moment branches out into three stems. First is shamanic guide that I work currently with cacao, and coming in introducing Blue Lily and Dream Work into Bangkok, and we start to do small groups at the time in this moment, and we're planning to do this online, and channel light language, and also classic thing like readings and etc. And this year is it this year or last year? Time just slipped, man. Anyway, I've just finished. I've just
COVID
finished
has
my.
Zoom.
I've just zoom. I've just finished my second round of introduction to channeling workshop, and I call it being a conduit, with that strong guidance of simply just hold space for everyone finding their own authentic ways and their own authentic natural state of bringing out the messages, song, what have you. So we've been have different expressions in the group, and a painter, and these are the things that I'm doing at this moment. Yes.
Yes. And so for you, from watching and listening and all of the media and what you post, you seem to have a lot of great insight into your journey and how things change. And every time I speak to you, the most incredible thing is I speak to a completely different person. The change and the growth every time from episode to episode, and seeing all the different things you've come to understand, it's inspiring. So what has it been like for you at the start? Let's go back to the start of your journey, Nalinee's journey, spiritual journey. What are some of the things you've learned of doing what you're doing, and how the journey's changed since the starting point?
Thank you so much for mentioning that, because these few days I've been going through just natural waves of old memory rises, and I finally find that firm space of no, those are already the dying part of me. Um, the one of the I always have to go back to those greatest lessons of being aware of the egoic personalities and what doesn't quite fit, of following the passion of shamanic work, channeling, and being an artist. And this all comes in kind of different angles. Artist and being a painter and bringing through energies through painting have taught me that I need to really learn to respect my creative energy, and it's something that is cannot be perceived. It's something that you just have to really observe the bodily rhythm, and something that cannot be forced and pushed. So my art has been teaching me in ways that there's no need to force, of giving birth to artistic project, giving birth and pushing things to get done in a certain time. Shamanic work with plant medicine and shamanic drum, always teaching me to be humble. And one of the hardest aspects that I had to accept is the layer of arrogance and waves of jealousy and envy, which, you know, many of us, these are the things that we may find it really hard to accept, but they're there, and sometimes they can be simply collective waves that perhaps trigger greatly through social media and that old programming of comparison. And the shamanic work has always brought me back, and channeling as well has always brought me back into, no, it's just everyone just different expressions of the source, and so are you. So it doesn't matter how other people see you, it's just as long as you see yourself, and as long as you focus on your path and continue to unlock the lessons. So I feel that I have humbled down a lot, but also there are two layers within me that I still need to be mindful of, like frustrations and fear of lack, all of these things, and just to be mindful of the vibe of concrete jungle of Bangkok at time. It can feel like you're constantly on the horse, and I'm being mindful not to bring it into the spiritual work. So these are the things that I have been learning, and also listening to my body, also knowing that doubts and fear are just natural waves that may rise, but just keep pursuing and leave space for these kind of inner works as well. Yeah.
Outstanding. And going into that, because I do feel that is a huge topic at the moment, and throughout the collective, or the spiritual consciousness collective, is jealousy, and is, say, competition and ego and all of that stuff. So I feel this, it may be great to talk about that, and we'll first start with jealousy. And for me, I've gone through those moments where I've had to do lots of inner work on understanding that jealousy is a really negative pattern, and it's something which we take up a lot of fucking time doing. And for me, it was always noticing that, and from my trials and tribulations of it, is stepping back and seeing it for what it is. So from your perspective, Nalinee, let's talk first of all about jealousy, and how important it is to look into that and see different sides from each side.
I have to link back to what we experienced and witnessed in the Amazon 5 years ago, how shamanic work can really intertwine with sorcery. And sorcery and shamanic work can, even spiritual work, channeling, anything you do, can really be contaminated by jealousy, envy, competition, anger. And these are the things that when we walk this path, we really need to be mindful of it. You know, are we overdoing ourselves? Are we over promoting ourselves? Are we doing, what are we doing this for? Are we doing it for to get a lot of followers? Are we doing it for because we really coming from the place of service? So these are the things that all of us are learning to be mindful of, and what I'm learning to be mindful of, because within the sacred space, with the ceremony, channeling, even art, it's going to cause imbalance and disharmony when these sacred things are wielded according to the egoic desire. And I feel that all of us are becoming aware of this, because we are learning to be the so-called magicians of balance, or conduits of balance, and these are the paths that we all have to walk and apply. So yeah, and it's sometimes it's not just jealousy. Sometimes when I see, and the internet is a smoky mirror, isn't it? The social media is a smoky mirror, because you never see the whole perspective of that people, of that situation, and it's a good training to discern. And I'm learning not to let the fire of passion burn me in ways that I'm passionate about this, and when I see someone doing something that I personally find it wrong, there's this like, oh, but then hey, is that really serving? Is that, you know, are we coming from the space of oneness? Are we just feeding into righteousness, again, separation, enhancing the ego, etc.? So these are the things that I'm really being mindful of, and I'm grateful for it to be aware. Yeah.
And having the responsibility which you've had, Nalinee, because there are a lot of people who listen to your content and have listened to it in the past. What was it like for you? And for those listening, it would give them good learning and inspiration. What was it like dealing with that? Because you would get a lot of projections at you, and you would get a lot of jealousy at you. That's just the truth of what I'm saying, and it's a nature of the beast, really. When you get into a level where people are viewing your content, people are looking at you, you can get a lot of people start throwing like jealousy and like all of those different things, or put you. I think that another one is putting on a pedestal, and this is one of the biggest things which is stopping that I feel the spiritual community from growing forward, is how they put people on pedestals. And so what was it like for you dealing with what you've gone through, and how did you be responsible for that and not let yourself get overwhelmed? Because I have seen it with teachers where they do love it. They love the drama. They love, obviously, the likes, like you say, and the following and stuff, but you are a heart-based centered person. So it's a totally different situation. So how has it been for you dealing with all that, Nalinee?
Yo, that's just a lot of information coming through. Well, firstly, it's really how you present yourself. We can't really blame other people for putting us on a pedestal. We too have to reflect
Yes.
upon how are we portraying ourselves. How's our vibe? How is our tone? Are we wearing any kind of persona that create illusion of expectation of some kind of elusive figure? So these are the things that we need to be mindful of, and I feel that this is part of our responsibility. And I'm a natural hermit, so I don't really go out and seek crowd. I'm the reverse. I'm learning to go out and let the crowd see me. I'm learning to say yes to invitation. I'm learning not to come up with the excuse, oh, it's the weather, oh, it's this, it's that.
Yes, yes.
So, so I'm the total reverse, but I have had projections on YouTube. I'm not getting a lot anymore, but sometimes there are some really imbalanced people that come and expect your service to be certain thing, and they
Yes,
doing
yes.
their best to will it, and it's really coming from a place of disowned pain. And I feel that we all just need to stay centered and let it be known that our work is not like a spa treatment, and it's not like we can do this for you, but no, you
Yes,
do
yes,
this
yes.
yourself. And sometimes it's just a random so-called what can be perceived as attack, but these kind of things are teaching us not to take it personal. Again, it comes from this own pain, come from a very deep distorted programming, whatever it is that got they brew in their head, and they just project it out on you. And before I used to react. Now I don't react, and I just
Yes,
leave it, or I block whatever it is. Yeah. If it's
yes.
persistent, then I just block.
And that's it. And there
Yeah.
are, for those who go into this spiritual path and work on the layers of understanding, we do live in multidimensional reality. So as well as the physical, there's loads of unseen stuff going on. And for us to be aware, and like you say, Nalini, being responsible for that precognitive workforce and what's going on all around you is important. And being heart-centered, forgiving yourself if you do go into ego, because at times the ego can be a great teacher, can't it? It's here to teach us. And it's the same with the shadow. They're basically just here to teach us about something. And a lot of people get scared and worried and push it away. But if it happens, it happens. And moving forward and forgiveness. So moving into competition as well, because this is another aspect to the spiritual journey, which I have had to do a lot of work on, and understanding that one of the most important things for me was allowing everyone to be what they need to be, and that's their path, and not to have any competition, because at the end of the day, everyone has a signature frequency. Everyone has spiritual contracts to help someone find themselves. And everyone, and sometimes competition, you can see it kind of can ruin relationships. And I've had it in the past where I've had friends who I've had to walk away from because they were giving me that competitional energy and kind of that envy, jealousy. And for me, I just want my friends to grow. and that's what I've had to work on. I want to make sure all of my friends, I'm helping them as best as I can. I don't want them to go down. I want to raise them. And so let's talk a bit about the competition then, Nalinee, from your perspective.
For me, I have to say that it came from the place, or it comes from the place of insecurities, and also the life when young, as young, when I used to live, that everything that we do has a score. Everything that we do has a grade. So
Yes.
it's so we constantly feel that there's some kind of validation going on with what we are doing. And as I say this, I can feel my guys smiling. But this spiritual path is to teaching us to value the invisible as much as the visible, and this can really open our eyes in many angles as well. I was never really felt any kind of competition being projected on me. Usually it's just rising within me and I'm owning it. It's just me.
Yeah,
But
that's a great way.
I do give myself a space. I do give myself a
Yes.
space that just not to project any thoughts onto the person and really contemplate on, sometimes why am I having this, and reminding myself not to go into the mode of resistance. Just feel it and know that from a place of awareness, I can choose to create from this, or I can choose to just let it pass and create from something that is more nurturing. Yeah, and the path itself, like it's always going to teach you. Plant medicine that we work with always going to teach us. Spirit guides always going to teach us. Universe going always put us on a place where we really need to learn. So I do know that whatever arises in me is not of me only, but it's something that accumulated within the DNA and cells from generation to generation, and also the energy of the place where I am, a capital city like Bangkok, is vibe and thrive on competition.
Yes. Yes.
So
There we
at
go.
the
Yeah.
bottom of it all, nothing is personal.
And it is, I feel being authentic, and what you're saying is, it's just being authentic on this journey is one of the most important things. And what I really, it's great to see that you own your mistakes. And that was one of the biggest thing for me coming into the next layer of when I did get more attention and more people coming to see me, more people coming to my workshops, was the moment where I stopped lying to myself and I stopped thinking I was perfect. And it was like, I was like at the start of the journey, the light work journey, and I was all love and light at the shadow, like, yes, shadow doesn't exist, doesn't blah, blah, blah. And I had that moment where I went into the dark night of the soul, if you want to call it, in my first few years on my path. And it got to the point where I couldn't stop. I couldn't tell a lie anymore. And I got to that stage in my life where I stopped lying about what was wrong with me. And even in my shows like today, or what I talk about, I always talk about my problems I have and issues I work on. And it's beautiful to see you do that, Nalinee, because that really shows that authenticity instead of trying to mask and hold back on who you really fucking are and trying to put on this face. And the more you have that of who you the fuck you really are, the more people are going to be like, oh, hang on, my heart's opening to your heart, and we're all talking fucking truth now, aren't we?
And it affects your work as well, because if you stay on the tip of the iceberg within your inner relationships, the people that comes to you that doing the work is going to be at that level, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's what plant medicine have taught me as well. Like, or in any kind of healing work, basically, you can only take others as deep as you have gone within yourself. And I always have this desire that I need to be mindful of after the ceremony. I come back and contemplate: have I done enough? Have I gone deep enough? Am I thinking too much about this? This kind of thing. The other aspect that we can't control, etc. So, yeah.
Beautiful. And how could we could really connect to this too, because I think a lot of what we're talking about now does connect to the inner child and child work and all of this stuff. What we're talking about now, what I've done inner work on, it's all been created from the child and from some parts of myself which I haven't really looked at. And like you say was a great way of saying it. It's just what people project and sometimes project at you is stuff you need to work on within yourself as well. So that's a great way of looking at it. So how could we connect all of this, say the jealousy and everything like that, to the inner child? Because I think a lot of it has to be looked at, because it's that childlike state, the jealousy and the competition and the I want this, you're better than me. How can we look into that and heal that part of ourselves?
I have to thank all the plant medicine that have given me an insight into this, and it's always come back to that cosmic joke that we are actually playing a serious joke on ourselves. That we are just really too much in our fucking head. and, and up until we suffer so much, and then there's a voice of sanity say, have you had enough? Have you had enough? And then when you agree, okay, I have had enough, then you let go and you're like, okay, fuck this.
That was easy, wasn't it? I made it a lot harder for myself.
Yeah. And if we understand, that's the thing though, because I feel that before the new age find it so hard to talk about the ego, but now we're coming into a more natural place of talking about the ego. It's just part of human lesson. So the ego likes to cling, and it's just going to cling, whether it's from the place of, being a victim or the place of righteousness. It likes to cling, and when we cling too much, it causes stress in the body. It causes stress in the mind. It causes suffering. And I come to a place where I realize it's more natural now that, hey, let's just laugh it off and cry if you need, but just know that it's all done. We are doing it to ourselves, basically. Let's just own it. Yeah.
And we've come a long way, haven't we, since 2012, when that kind of Mayan calendar ended and everyone was just left, right and center. We're going to ascend in 2 years and we're all love and light. And we kind of we got our blind sides out, didn't we, where we ignored the blind side of ourselves and just thought, right, we're fucking perfect, we've been lied to, we're perfect. But then came past 2012 going towards 20 COVID period, we kind of, that was a time where we're like, oh fuck, we've got a lot wrong with us, haven't we?
Aww. I had an opportunity to sit with the Mayan elder, and then he said that Tata Walter, he said that from Guatemala, he said that in 2012, when one of their calendars ended, they had 3, now they use 2. One of the calendar ended. It was actually the year that the elders received the messages from the fire to share their knowledge to the world. So yeah, it's an end of the cycle, but I guess Hollywood and drama likes to take it into another tone.
Yes. And what do you feel for humanity then at the moment, from your intake of the last, say, 5 years going in past COVID? What do you really feel is happening with humanity at the moment? Do you feel that we're progressing? Do you feel we've gone backwards? What's your perspective on this world?
We are definitely progressing, and this I'm generalizing because with the knowing that Earth is multidimensional, and our experience on Earth is always going to be very reflective according to our mental state, state of belief system, state of action. So that is the most important thing to notice as well. And if we want to shift our experience on Earth, we just need to change our doing. And doing is the meaning of karma. So if you want to change the karmic cycle, you change your action and reaction. And I feel that we came, perhaps since 2012, we came from a place that we were able to see the distortion in the so-called metrics clearer and clearer. But now I feel that next step is compassion. Next step is just the knowing that everyone have the right just to swim through whatever they need to experience, and we can hold on to the sense of righteousness and sense of judgment as much as we want, but I don't see that sustain in the long run, really.
No. And that's it for me. I'd say the last COVID for me has opened loads of opportunities to grow. And for me, before, I was very busy. I've got a family. I had to do loads of hours in the job I didn't want to do. And for me, COVID was the period where it was a gift, because I was able to actually do so much work on myself, and I had every day just that work, doing it on myself, going into different traumas, different realities and of what I've experienced. And for me, COVID was a great gift, and I do feel that COVID was here, was part of the plan, the greater plan of our awakening process, and kind of like the ripple start of something which is going to be more creative. And I had a gentleman on called Andrew Bartis, who came on the show, who's on again next month, who does Akashic record reading, and he was going into the golden age and the awakening age of this year, and talking about coming into 2035 will be the time where we'll start going against the government, and we're gonna see some crazy shit coming in the next few years. So all of these experiences, like the Mayans, your experiences, Nalinee, is all kind of coming into the same position of, we are making changes slowly, but these changes have to be self changes, not we're going to all awaken at the same time, or you're awake and I'm awake and we'll do it all at once. It's everyone doing it in their own time, everyone doing it in their own space, and us giving them that space to grow as well.
Yeah, I COVID always hit people who's in the busy rhythm. It's like, no, rest. Yeah, and I was that. And to be fair, I caught it from gluttony. I ate from my friend's plate. And there's a voice in my head saying, you don't need to eat that. Your food is coming. Oh, but I'm hungry. So I did. And then he tested positive the night later. And 3 days later, I was like, I'm gone.
How was it for you then, processing having COVID? Because I had it as well. What was it like for you going through it?
I'm so grateful, because the symptom hit when I left my house, and I'm sharing the house with my mother, who's she's in her own way. She's 70 years old, and she doesn't want COVID, and I understand that. And so we had it outside Bangkok. That I'm very grateful of the synchronicity of the timing. And when the fever came, as if I knew, I took a thermometer with me, and I don't usually travel with thermometer, so I was just measuring my fever, and when it hits over 38, I'm like, okay, I'm in for it. And I was just shivering in this new place, new land, and I was just asking the land just to hold space for me. And I saw my grandmother in spirit came in, and she sat next to me. And then I just surrendered in, and luckily I had dengue fever to compare it with. I had ayahuasca to compare it with, and that fever wasn't the worst. And 3 nights I asked COVID, I'm like, let's just work together. Why are you here? 3 nights of vivid dream, and in one of the dream I went up to my mother as an adult self, and I told my mom that, I since young I felt this cracked in my heart, and I didn't have a word to describe it, but I felt it since young. And that gave me more clarity of all of this that I'm processing in my personal growth and healing and transformation. It all comes down from this cracked in the heart that I felt. And we took 4 grams of psilocybin when COVID was still intact, and that wasn't a good choice. But it was a big.
Let's stop. Let's stop right now. You're reversing. Tell us more about that.
You can cut this out, but I just had to say it. We were like, we felt okay now, but we're not quite negative yet. So we were just like sneaking, watching the sunrise, and I didn't expect it to be strong. I just was chewing it, and it came, and I'm like, I'm in trouble. I surrendered into it, crying, and Michael was just puking for himself and puking for humanity. But it was such a great cleansing for those hours. Yeah, and after COVID, I had long COVID after, and now my body is just catching up, coming back to balance. Yeah.
And how long did you go through it then? Mine was probably about 10 days. I was quite bad.
Oh, mine was 13, but on the third day, I forced myself to be better because Michael caught it from me, and his eyes were rolling back. He's not used to getting sick, and I'm like, okay, I'll just massage you. I'm fine now. And Kelly Nicholson got it at the same time that I got it from the other side of the world.
Ah, yes. I remember she thought she wasn't going to get it for ages, didn't she? And she finally got it right at the end. And so did you.
Oh, I actually dreamt that I got COVID 2 weeks before I got it.
Wow.
Yeah, I dreamt that I was around these people who wore nurse and surgeon, like doctor suits, and I'm like, and they're like, you got COVID. I'm like, why have I got COVID? How did I get it? And they're like, we don't know. So I'm like, okay. Oh well.
So going through us, so after COVID, and so the last Lionsgate, I had G on for the last show, and I asked G about this as well. And I'm asking a few people because it's interesting to know your experience. How was the last Lionsgate? Because we were dealt with solar flares, full moon, and Lionsgate all at once. So how was it for you, Nalinee, going through that process?
Since the end of July, which is so-called the beginning of that alignment of Lionsgate flowing in, I purged a lot of irritation, and God bless Michael. He's just there witnessing it, holding space for me. I can't remember what brought up that trigger, but it was a lot of anger, a lot of aggression, a lot of control, a lot of masculine stuff
Yes.
that I needed to be mindful not to again wield that kind of power. Yeah.
It was a crazy time, and for me, I think I felt it on the evening. I did a show on Lionsgate evening, and afterwards I had this really a weird, I'd say it's like a worrying feeling, like a worrying energy. And I looked into it, and it was what I picked up off my mum when I was in like year 8, year 12, year 13, loads of different aspects of it. I picked it up from her. So for me, that was a really big process for me. The next day, actually going back to that past self, I went and actually talked to my past self, spoke to them, and had a conversation saying, I love you, I'm here, I'm no longer taking on this, say, paranoia or uncertainty about the future anymore. Because for me, one of the biggest thing which holds me back personally and my growth is my programs from my parents. And that's one of the biggest things in my life. I have to, it's like a never ending process going back to so many different times, different ages of when I picked up, say, bad habits or anger or anxiety, or just something which wasn't right in the environment. So for me, it was a big lesson for me. Right now, I'm doing more work. I have to be responsible for it. And now the Lionsgate was showing me all of this unhealed stuff I needed to look at. Here you go, have a look. You've got all this to deal with. So it was interesting.
Yeah, because listening to you, I was reminded of that family energy that we can telepathically connect it, because it's becoming clearer and clearer when I find it hard to go through my emotional stuff. My sister, who lives somewhere else in Bangkok, also finding it hard in her own way. And what I've been doing, I live with my mom, and also sometimes we clash because we both, I guess, strong-headed women. And what I find it, what I find it helpful is that there's time to communicate. There's time just to sit with and say what's going on, and we would communicate. And from sometimes when communicate is done, and I can't really insist her to see how I see things, I come back into the womb. So it's probably what many people call it womb blessing, just to connect with my mother from that space, and just felt that primal love between child and a mother, and just let that so-called whole space. Sorry, there's a construction next door if you can
Oh,
hear
it's
it.
fine, it's okay. And what a topic to go into then, and let's go into that parenting, programming, and childhood, kind of growing up, being a child. So what for you has been your biggest hurdles about being able to learn and heal from? I feel separation is one of the most important things with it, because I'm the same, Nalinee. If I'm with my mum for a long period of time, I get frustrated, and I'm like, she just doesn't listen to me. And when you said that, that reminded me of So the first sweat lodge I went to, my friend picked me up and he was talking about something, and at the time I was frustrated because I had something on my mind and no one would ever ask me how I was or how I was doing. And I had this real fucking horrible frustration come in me. And I was in the car on the way to Sweat Lodge and I was just like, all of a sudden I was overwhelmed, really, really frustrated. Then he was like going into the car and I was like, I had to go for a walk around like the thing, come back, and I came into it and I went back and I went back to my past self, and I was around about 7 or 8, and I remember shouting at my mum saying, you don't ever listen to me. I can never be heard, or you can never actually listen what I want, or you can never understand me. And that was coming out me 32 years of age onto the Sweat Lodge. That came up for me. I was like, wow, I've not healed or purged this yet. So let's go into that conditioning and frustration, so to say.
Yeah, it's. Thank you for sharing that. You probably have deep connection with the sweat lodge. What do you call it? Ritual ceremony therapy. Because what you said reminded me of how when we about to meet some kind of medicine or work, we have this reaction already, even before.
Yes.
It's like the body knows. For me, my parents separated, and I had to accept how my dad is. Although there is too a side of me that's still healing that old programming of feminine seeking the masculine, fulfilling romantic desire, fulfilling needing to be heard, needing to be held by a physical masculine figure, etc. But it's not as loud anymore. Now it's more of the masculine energy within the physical feminine, the controlling coming from fear, defensiveness, constantly holding this defensive ground. But then it's an old programming, isn't it, of defending, because we need to protect our loved one. We need to make sure that our loved one is being fed, is safe. So this is very old stuff that I observe within my mom, and also coming out through me at time to time. And for me, money. It's such a great lesson. I've learned that money doesn't like tension. You have to relax in order to receive. And
does it grow on trees?
It doesn't grow on trees. You can't plant it. You can't print it either.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah, and so this fear of lack, which I know that it probably comes from the chapter of wars, the chapter of migration, the chapter of many chapters of our ancestors, inspired me as well to slowly plant seed of moving out from Bangkok, because the energy in this capital city is very much like, you don't make enough money, that's fine. Just spend more and you save more. You don't make enough money, that's fine, we have a job for you, let's make more money. So it's constantly programming, and I do not want to live like that until my last breath. I don't want to bring that into my spiritual service. You know, it's that realization of how do we want to experience Gaia, how do we want to experience Earth. You know, relaxing the defensiveness, knowing that we receive what we receive when we need to receive it, and also doing my best to slowly shift my lifestyle, so to speak. Perhaps in many years' time I can fully move away from this environment. But at this moment, you know, I guess there's some things for us to be done, to be shared, and
Yes.
to be experienced here still.
Yeah, that's it. Like you say, remembering being here on Gaia and the big vision of outcreating the government, outcreating kind of the money at times, knowing that we need money and we need to be good with money, and the relationship with money, it helps us. And it's like a lot of karmic stuff. Money, I tend to find I know I had a curse on my lineage, which I had to work on loads, a family crest, which was a financial negative curse. Which basically meant the ancestors of my DNA ancestors it was like really rich, really poor, really rich, really poor. And it was like a cycle, lifetime through to lifetime. So I had to do a lot of ceremony and ritual, actually breaking that contract and whatever was put onto the lineage as well. So it's when you said about sometimes you get your mother or father inside you. Have you ever had that moment where you're speaking and you're speaking like your mum, and it's not you anymore? It's not you. You're literally, it's like your mum's in you, possessing you, and you're saying it. I remember I said it to my kids, and I'm like, I walked away, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, that's my dad. That isn't me. And it kind of got, first time it happened, it spooked me out a little bit. I was like, whoa, that's like...
Yeah, definitely. Oh, it's always our close one that trigger that side of us. Like for me,
Yes.
it's always with Michael. For you, perhaps your children's in the picture as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I now I hear it more in my thoughts. Like when I'm frustrated, I usually just, Michael knows when I need space, and I just sit with that space, and I observe my thoughts. And boy, I don't sound like Nalini at all. I sound more like other people in my family. And I guess those are the things too that we need to be aware of, that we no longer them and we don't need to be them. My sister, however, is having a hard time unplugging herself from pain. And what I've learned from family members is that we can never force them to change, because they can cause more resistance. It's just about living your life and check on them from time to time, and that's all I can do at the moment.
Yeah. And so what was it? Because I know a lot of people listening will have that experience of having a parent and a mother and father splitting up when you were younger. What was it like for you processing that? Because I know it's so hard. We don't understand how when you're a child, you're like a psychic sponge. You're basically sponging up everything, and you're such a psychic, Nalinee. You would have been able to notice something going on in the unseen world and their reality before it even happened, the actual manifestation of them splitting up. So what's it like for you being able to heal that and look into that, and for those listening to have some inspiration? Because I have a lot of clients who come see me where a lot of their trauma, which really affects them in this present time, is from their parents splitting up, because they had no balance and no someone working together and healing. They had to, but again, you had to experience that, Nalinee. That was your contracts of the soul, to come in and have that relationship happen in front of you, so you could grow from it. So what was it like for you?
Since young, I automatically blame myself, and I guess I needed to go through that self-blame. Since young, I blame myself not to be able to be the so-called the glue of the parent. Such a silly thing, like say, like why? But I guess that was like a so-called big-hearted spirit that I had since young, isn't it? It's like,
Yes.
you try your best to hold this, what you wanted to be, as a reflection of love. And then I came to the acceptance with how my dad is when I was 30, so about 13 years ago. So it took me such a long journey, because I'm a stubborn by nature. I'm a stubborn person by nature, and I like to hold on things. and that fire back at me as depression, eating disorders, and it always comes up in relationships, whether relationships with friends, animals. I got to the place where a cat walked away from me. I cried. I'm like, oh, my rejected
Oh no, no.
by a cat, and they do that. So it's all of this. It's all of this. I realize that universe is always telling me that if I continue to seek from outside love, it's going to be an endless seek. And some people may think, oh, I can say that because I'm married to Michael and we're such a happy couple. Yeah, we are happy friendship. We're very much like best friend, but he too has his own things to work on. I too have things that I have to work on. It's always about what the so-called self-love is always about. when you find yourself so judging towards yourself, when you find yourself paralyzed by fears, doubts, being shaken with anxiety, what do? You don't do anything about it. You come back and you learn not to identify with it, and then accept it in a way that you're not identifying with it. And it's an art. And from a place of awareness, you then realize that, yeah, you have a choice to continue in this endless seeking of admiration and love, or you can just continue to flow and roll in this life as who you are moment to moment. And it's not, to me, now I realize that self-confidence, self-esteem doesn't really matter. What matters is the fulfillment that you do in moment that has nothing to do with how many likes you get, how many woo wow you get from others. It's just that sacred relationship with what we do, that's the most fulfilled thing to experience.
And that's why so I spoke about this on the last show. Deleted my Facebook and Messenger off my phone altogether, just from having that, because I felt it was. So I do my post and all my work on my laptop, then I post it and I leave it, and I'll come back to it and check it. But it was taking away my validation of who I was and my self journey, and always looking in Facebook and feeling those likes or comments. And it's kind of like it's basically like an instant gratification thing where you're feeling gratified by it all the time, and it becomes addictive. And for me this year, and this Lionsgate coming past it, was I kept saying it to myself, and I when I was on Facebook, I'm like, I'm doing it again. I need to stop doing it, but I just kept doing it. Then I kept avoiding it till it got to the point where I was like, I'm right. I'm gonna step up now, and I'm gonna speak as a soul, as the I am presence, and I'm gonna change this, because it's getting to the point where my subconscious will pick up my phone and I'll just look at it, and I won't even realize or make the conscious effort to actually do it. It'll just be like this. I'll be there and like this, like a kind of robot going and notice.
I'm like that, and the funniest thing is that I noticed me and Michael, we grabbed our phone at the same time. We looked at each other.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know, but I want some cat videos. And he's like, I want to play game. It's you know what? It's very much like a love-hate relationship, isn't it? But
Yes.
I love social media. Why? Because we get to share. I love to document things, and I like to share things.
Yes.
And I guess the lesson for me is not to be too attached with the numbers. That's all.
Yes.
And like you said, just to be mindful when that auto habit comes up and your fingers start moving and it goes into the mode of like, why are we doing this? Let's just put it down.
Just find yourself on the news feed, looking at the same thing you've looked at 4 times. You're like, oh, I've been here before. Like, do you imagine how many times and hours or minutes people throughout the world have been done looking at the same thing twice on the feed? I've got a lot of work done.
In the beginning of September, we're going to this seaside town, and we're gonna be like, okay, let's just detach ourselves from social media a bit. And Michael's like, yeah, let's do it for 2 weeks. I'm like, whoa, dude.
You're like uncomfortable.
Let's be realistic.
And it's the greater journey going forward, and I feel the technology it's advanced and limited us at the same time, where everyone has to be responsible for the technology and their intake and what you're doing, not to get attached to the likes. Like you said, there was one point in time where I was attached to them, but now I've got to that process where I am what I am in my business, and I'm putting a lot of intention into say reaching people coming on my workshops.
Yeah.
And that now is at the side of me where I'm like, I'm not putting my intention and focus on that. And when I stopped doing that, everything grew organically and how it was meant to grow, instead of, right, I need to get all these likes, for views, blah 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 blah. But instead I learned how effort, the requirement of effort and discipline, what it takes to actually be on this path. And say you've been on this path for a while, Nalinee, and you're still on it, and a lot of people come on the path and they can't keep up with the schedule and discipline 6 years ahead on continuing to be a teacher, because being a teacher comes with responsibility, and it comes with, you have to be doing work on yourself all the time. And if you're not doing that work on yourself and looking into the traumas and shadows, you can kind of become really unbalanced, and it can affect you, and it kind of can just take over you like a wave. So for me, learning what it takes and taking my time building the show up, building my practice up nice in an organic, natural, fun way, instead of like a right obsessive looking at my likes and blah blah blah.
Yeah, like everything is a smoky mirror, isn't it? Like Facebook and
Yes.
Instagram, and it's always teaching us of everything is a neutral true. It's just how we wheel it. You know, sometimes we can be too obsessed in self healing even. And
Yes.
I always see that there always a balance in things, that I see this as a great tool of sharing and connecting with how we find each other, social media. Right, so it's just this kind of breaching connection beyond physical distance that I'm grateful for. But yeah, it comes with lessons, like double-edged knife, so to speak.
Yes, there we go. And I remember this was a saying from Andrew Bartis, which I heard a long time ago: the three-edged sword, one sword, your side, my side, and the other edge is the truth. And that was such a good way of seeing it. Like, see, always the three-edged sword. And for me, Nalinee, obsession was part of my path at one point, because I was doing 7 days a week spiritual practice, and it got to the point where the journey got a bit toxic, and I wasn't having the passion and the effort and the smile anymore, because it was just same doing it over and over again. So my own personal practice, I have 1 day off a week. So the 1 day off, I completely switch off from phones, spirituality. I don't talk about spirituality. I set my protection the day before forward to myself. So I pray for protection throughout that day, for my dreaming and stuff like that. But that 1 day off grows me, because I can actually be not this spiritual person 100 times or 100% all the time. It grows me to actually be a fucking human. You're here, I'm here to be a human. We're here to be three-dimensional, as well as this great inspirational, great multi-dimensional being.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, usually Saturday or Sunday will be a day where I don't touch email too much, or when I don't get into the loop of so-called working too much, and I would leave other days in the week for catching up on sessions, catching up on my clients, taking care of whatever it is that needs to be taken care of. But those downtime really helpful, and it gives space for integration as well, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, there's always can be too much of the good things that you can disconnect and cause imbalance, and there's no integration into this humanness, so to speak.
Beautiful. And so we're almost at the end of the hour. I've got to take all the kids to the park and got so much to do today. But I'd like to thank you for coming on the show, Nalinee. You really are a true inspiration, sister.
Thank you. It's your vibe as well as the host. You know, it's a
Yes.
reflective thing of how much we can open, and you allow us to open coming on your show. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And how can people get a hold of you, Nalinee, if they want to have a look at your artwork and sessions, so on?
Instagram, Nalinee Diosara. YouTube, same name, or Remembering Love and Light Language, but I changed to Nalinee Diosara. Website, so connections, nalinee.com. Facebook, Nalinee Diosara. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I'd love to have you on again in a few weeks if the creation happens with the Light Language show, which I really want to do for the hopefully get Matty and Laura Massey. I've spoke to Laura Massey, my good friend, and told her about you, and I said you should connect with you. She's inspiration as well, and just bringing everyone together in a great way.
Yay.
Yes. So thank you everyone for watching, and bless you, Nalinee. Brownie
Thank
out.
you.
See you later.
Bye.
Yeah, see you later, guys. God bless. Bye bye.